Hey again everyone. I'm making a response to RabidApe. Let's begin. The first point is just pure semantics. All I said was every other form of life comes from every other form of life. No, I don't think I came from a bird. All I was saying was if evolution is true, we should be able to trace where every other form of life came from one form of life at the beginning. That's it. Your next kind of main point was saying that the dinosaurs were killed off by the meteor or whatever because they were bigger than the other creatures, and once they died off it allowed the mammals to traverse the land and multiply, but there were dinosaurs smaller than chickens, so I don't see how that helps. Your next point was that we can't find fossils for everything because not everything has fossilized. Sure. However, the posts that you made, the Wikipedia stuff, you posted the Archaeopteryx, which is hilarious because one, it's, a lot of people think it's just a hoax, but number two, it's not reptilian in the least. I mean, there are other birds alive today with teeth and with claws, so that's not a missing link between dinosaurs and birds, even if it was a real bird. Your next point was that if Satan does something bad, we can blame God for it, because you don't believe we have free will. Well, that's wrong. You do have free will. You can turn off this video if you want, or you cannot. That's free will. Satan chose to rebel against God. Yes, God knew it would happen. However, God's not going to force anyone or anything to make any decision whatsoever, because forced anything is basically rape, and God is good. So He's not going to force you to do anything. Yes, He knows what you're going to do before you do it, but that doesn't mean He's responsible for what you do. You have free agency. Now, we both agree we had a common ancestor, we just disagree on who that was. I say it was Adam and Eve, and you say it was monkey-like creatures. Next, you attacked the idea of the possibility of a flood that covered the world 4,400 years ago, which accounts for all the fossils we find today. Well, I'm going to do what you do, and I'm just going to point to some links, and there's plenty of proof for a flood. The Grand Canyon is one of them. Alright, so next we started talking about my cat, who turned out to be orange and white. When I went to the pet store, his brother was gray and black. So within the cat species, there is a limitation for variations of different colors. And within a single generation, we can see a few different colors emerge. So even within one generation, we can see variations, but that's not evolution in a single generation, because you're going to say it takes billions of years for something to evolve, but we can see variations within one generation. That's not evolution. You touched upon the issue of moral absolutes, which are impossible if evolution is true. I say God created us and that there is a set standard of morality. However, you believe in evolution and that you are your own decider of moral absolutes. You said that in your video to a lesser extent. So that's one of my big gripes with the theory. If it's not true, and what I'm saying is true, that God created us, then evolution is a lie, and on top of that it's a dangerous lie, because you could justify doing pretty much anything because you're not accountable to anyone other than yourself. You can say, if you're Hitler, I can kill 6 million Jews as long as I don't get caught for it, because I am the decider of moral absolutes, and I'm going to do what I want to do. You can see the danger in that, right? Now, you said that you love your family, but if you look at it from your point of view, which is you came from a monkey, which came from a lesser mammal, which came from slime, and then on top of that you said you don't have free will, which makes sense if you believe in evolution, because you believe you're nothing but a biological machine, which is what I said in my earlier video. Why do you love your family? Because you're forced to? Because, there's chemical reactions going on in your brain that says love them? You could say that, but then once you know that, can't you just say, okay, then I guess I don't love them, I'm just forced to? So why do you love anything? For that matter, can't you look at it objectively from the evolutionary point of view and just say, I'm being forced to love them? You can see where I'm going with this. It's just a very poor way to look at life, and I'm glad I don't think like that anymore. Now here's an interesting point. We're both looking at the same evidence, but we're just coming to different conclusions. When people go to a courtroom, the evidence is on the table, but you still have to make a verdict as to whether they're innocent or guilty, according to the court case. But the evidence remains the same. So we're both looking at the same evidence. You look at this retrovirus thing and say, okay, apes and humans have this, a similarity there, and that means, according to you, that we came from them. I look at it and just say we were infected with the same virus. It's the same evidence, just different conclusions, and that's all this is. We both have the same world to look at. You believe it's a few billion years old, I believe it's about 6,000 years old, and I believe we can both find evidence to support our claims. There's plenty of evidence that the Bible is true. I'll supply it with you on the links. Now, I imagine you might make a video response to this, so I'm just going to give you some new stuff to play around with. How can you account for the beauty in creation? And the order as well. Let's talk about beauty. I mean, look at the human design. I may not be the most attractive person in the world, but you can see some beautiful men and women, and there's just, you know what I'm getting at. Or you could just look at the animal kingdom. There's some incredibly beautiful designs out there. In fact, you're hard-pressed to find anything that doesn't have some kind of unique and amazing design to it. I mean, you might not like spiders or centipedes, but they serve their purpose, and they're pretty cool in their own right, too. So, on top of that, just the sheer intelligence of what we see. If I take marbles, you know, the little balls, and I make them into a horse, not a real horse, obviously, but a marble horse, and I stick that in the back seat of a car and I drive around, is it going to get more complex as I drive around, or is it just going to roll all over the place? You see, evolutionists believe with enough circumstance we can go from chaos to order. But it doesn't work like that. If you honestly believe that, then that means we should be able to travel, if we knew every inch of all of space, and let's say it goes on infinitely and there's an infinite amount of planets with every possibility, we should be able to find a NASA space shuttle just sitting in the middle of a canyon somewhere just because random chance could have assembled it. Now you're going to say that's ridiculous because a NASA space shuttle is really complex and takes fine-tuning of, you know, on a very small level for it to be made possible. And so is life. Even the most simple life forms are more complex than a NASA space shuttle, so I can't believe that that happened by chance. That takes more faith than believing an intelligent designer created intelligence. That actually went a lot faster than I thought it would, so I have a few minutes to go over some new points that I want to make. I don't have time in this video to talk about carbon-14 or radioisotope dating, but to say the least, they're not exact sciences at all. In fact, they're completely fraudulent, so if someone wants to message me and talk about it, I have a response to those objections to the age of the earth. The Bible says people who scoff at the Bible are ignorant of the world before the flood, how it was in the water and out of the water. You see, the Bible talks about a seventh layer of the atmosphere, which was above the earth, like a water canopy. And this water canopy is what fell to the earth 4,400 years ago and flooded the whole planet. This water canopy, when it was up there, was probably propelled by the Earth's magnetic field. We all know that ice can actually be suspended over planets by magnetic fields. Anyways, this water canopy made the Earth like a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, which doubled the oxygen pressure and thus oxidized the whole planet, which is why dinosaurs grew to be such enormous creatures. I mean, lizards never stopped growing, and if you add oxygen to any living creature, be it vegetation or animals, they'll live longer, live healthier, and the Bible talks about how Adam lived to be over 900 years old. This is only possible if you double the air pressure and oxygen levels. So, once the water canopy fell, oxygen levels became very much what we see today, and thus lifespans all around the world were reduced to what we see today. And thus, before then, everything lived longer and lived bigger. Some people object to the idea about the flood because they say, where did all the water come from and where did all the water go? Well, I explained that there was a water canopy above the earth, and it also says in the Bible that the oceans were held underneath the earth before the world flooded, and the oceans broke open, or the ground broke open, and the oceans gushed out. That's when the peaks and the valleys of the earth were formed. So the world was probably very flat when it began with, and there weren't the valleys of the ocean depths that we have today. Once the whole world flooded, and you know the earth is covered like 2/3 in water, right? If all the bottoms of the ocean were risen to sea level, the whole world would be covered in like miles and miles worth of water. There's plenty of water on this planet. So there's enough water to flood the world, and after the flood is when all the valleys of the deep were created, and the mountains rose up, so that's where all the water went. Here's an interesting thing about water. Where did it all come from? We can't find like a speck of H2O in outer space, yet this planet, this amazing planet, just so happens to have, 100% of the water in the whole solar system. A big stumbling block for people is, if God is real and evolution's not true, why would God make a world full of death and murder and rape and all the terrible things we see? God did not make a world such as that. He made a perfect world, and He gave us free will, and it just so happens that we used our free will for evil. And you can choose to do bad. And Adam, the first man, according to the Bible, sinned against God, and since we are all from Adam and we inherit the traits of our parents, we were all inheritors of the sin nature. Sin is like oil and water to God. He's holy, so He can't go anywhere near it, and this whole world is sinful. It is separated from God. So I can see why some people would say there is no God, because we are separated from